Meet Jessica Charles, the VP of Programming and Events at ForbesLive, responsible for creating compelling content and logistics for Forbes events. With over a decade of experience and a degree in journalism from Boston's Northeastern University, Jessica's motto is, "I never met a story I couldn't tell." As a proud New Yorker, she brings her passion for storytelling to every event, no matter the size. Jessica firmly believes in the transformative power of live events to spread knowledge and change to the world. Tune in to hear more about her insights on event planning, storytelling, and the impact of events. Welcome to Eventus 365, the podcast that's all about corporate events and the magic behind the scenes. I'm your host, Yanique DaCosta, and I am excited to take you on a journey through the world of corporate events. But before we dive in, let's talk about the stress of creating marketing material for your events. We all know how tough it can be when deadlines are tight and resources are limited, but guess what? YKMD Visual Communications has got your back. Our design firm specializes in working with corporate event professionals just like you, and we're here to help take the stress out of creating stunning graphics for your event. Our team of expert designers can deliver custom brand compliant designs in just 12 hours. So whether you need branding, signage, marketing materials, or anything else, YKMD's got you covered. Okay, now that that's done, let's start the show. Jessica, thank you for joining me on this episode of Eventus 365, where we talk about all the craziness, event related, of course, and maybe some things in between, but whatever. we won't tell ourselves today. Talk to me about how you got started in like the event planning industry and like what led you to like your current role at Forbes, because I mean that's a pretty major deal.
Yeah, I would love to. First, thank you so much for having me and reaching out. I'm very honored. In my career, I was very lucky to have and see all these jobs that I was super interested in. And when I was younger, I thought I would be a journalist. So when I was in school, I was like, oh, I want to do internships. And I got an internship at a mall in Billerica, Massachusetts, the Burlington Mall. And I was their marketing intern. And as the marketing intern, you did a lot of events that were like geared to getting people into the mall.
Absolutely.
And meanwhile, we had the internship and there was like something like lurking in the back. And we kept on hearing like, oh, there's like something coming. Nobody knew the word for it, but it was just like, something's coming. And I was like, well, I know it's very ominous. It was just like, we need to get people in the mall. Something's going to happen. And we're like, wait, what? It was the recession, 2008. Coming.
I am so dead.
Yeah. So
I'm thinking the clown's going to come out. Like, I thought it was like an event happening inside.
Honestly, I would have rather clowns than that recession. But it definitely was one that, as a retailer and somebody who worked in store, one of the things that they knew that they had to like get people in. So it was a lot of events. We worked with a PR company, Pan Communications. And there was this woman who worked at Pan who I'd worked with at my previous internship. And I was like, she's so cool. I want to do her job. So then I was like, oh, I'm going to do PR. I, again, didn't think that events was a full-time job. I just knew that you could do an event while you did PR. And so, the recession hit. My plan went completely away because I graduated from school and I could not get a job. And I was like,
oh, you too?
Because I was just like,
it was a struggle.
Wherever I could get a job, I don't care. Just give me money, please. So I ended up moving from New York to Baltimore, and worked at a job where I was a hosting coordinator for student exchange organization. And I like definitely had given up on working in PR and doing events. And then I worked there for a few years, got laid off. Then I was like, oh, I'll be an admin because like they get money and it seems like a very like steady industry. Like you always need an admin. So I did that for a little bit. And then I moved over to EMD Serono, which was a biotech back in Massachusetts. And one of the first things that I was tasked with was helping with site events. And so, as your listeners probably know, internal events are very different than external events. It's different to have your clients also be your colleagues who are demanding things of you and giving you ideas of what they think an event should be. Meanwhile, they don't know the budget. So it was a great learning experience, but I definitely was, I was looking at 30, like I was turning 30 in the next year or so. And I was kind of like, what do I want? Like, this is temporary. Like, I need to really get on a path. And so I was like writing down what fulfilled me, like what got me excited. And events was like at the top of it. And I still, like a dum-dum, wasn't really like, oh, is this a full-time job? Even though I was doing events there, we had an events department that wanted to hire me. I still was kind of like, I don't know if I want to do this.
No, yeah.
I want something else. And so I applied to Forbes. I remember getting my first interview. The second interview, I got a call for a month later. And I was going to see the live action Jungle Book. And I remember being so excited. And like, I couldn't even watch the movie because I was like, oh my God, I got the second interview at Forbes. I can't believe it. And then, yeah, the rest is history. I've been there for 7 years. I've worked in our logistics department. I've worked in our programming department, which was actually launched in like 7 years ago in 2016. And now I oversee both. So nice. The rest is kind of history.
How many people are on your team? I was gonna say how many direct reports you have, but like I feel like that's not even like a real question. Like, how many people are on your team?
We have a small but mighty team. So on our team, we have production, audience development, programming, logistics, and then event partnerships, which is a role that's changing now. And I would say all in, we're about 23, 24 people. So we're tiny but mighty, and we handle, last year was 100 events. So I usually say like 80 plus events.
I just want to let you know that your definition of tiny and my definition of tiny are not equivalent.
Well, when you look at it like this way, we just did an event 2 weeks ago now in Abu Dhabi for 600 people. And
okay. Context. Yep. I got it. Lean. I'm calling
lean. We're a lean team.
Yeah. I love that. How do you support your team? Like, how do you help ensure their success? Because I mean, I know a big thing for me when I was working in corporate America, I mean, even I try to create that same kind of environment for my team now, is giving them the opportunity to, one, like share their ideas, be thought leaders within our team, execute independently, but also to learn and grow. So like, what do you do to support them and ensure their individual success while working on like the overall projects?
I think one of the things that makes us so successful is that we can bring our individuality to the roles that we have. Also the opportunity to see other events. Like, there's no way that we can be in a bubble and say like, we're not going to go see other competitor events or learn from other people. So the team is very much like, we're always a sponge soaking up information. One of the ways that I do that as a leader is give them that autonomy. Like, what are the ideas that you have? How do you want to make this better? There's no way that I can come into the space and say like, this event is the best event we've ever had. And 1 year, and then the next year it's the same event and we've copied and pasted. It never works. So we're always constantly evolving and trying to figure out what's next, because your audience is evolving and their appetite is evolving and your clients' appetites are evolving. So really having our fingers on the pulse in terms of what they get excited about, what my team gets excited about, what learning opportunities I could bring to them, and also how I can incorporate their ideas into the everyday ethos and our overall mission is super important. And I think that's what's made, our team so successful.
I mean, you just kind of talked about like your overall mission. Like when you're talking about are you talking about the overall mission as like the Forbes brand? Or are you talking about the overall mission of the event? And then how do the overall missions of the event like there are lots of questions in my head a while ago. I was like, wait, what? Huh? I'm not sure. So I just go.
So what I always say is that we bring the magazine to life. Okay. So how we're structured is we have tentpole events, which is about 10 to 12 events that we do every year. Those are editorially run. Our editors, like our under 30 franchise or healthcare franchise, they create those and have created real success with them. And we work with our editors in terms of the content and execution of those events. Then we have custom events where a client will come to us and say, like, hey, I'm really interested in telling this story. And it might be about AI or blockchain or some other topic. And we'll work with our client, but also our editor to figure out how can we create a tangible program that is going to be a place of learning for our attendees. There's going to be tangible takeaways for our speakers, for our audience and our speakers, and then finding the right speakers to add and to be able to bring their expertise to our audience. So that's the two kind of formulas we have. We all, like, there is overarching, yes, we're Forbes and we have that at the core, but then ForbesLive, which is the team we sit on, also has, you know, like, we want to create fun. We're not a stodgy conference in a ballroom. Like, we want to create those moments of intimacy and networking for our attendees as well.
So, by the way, I have this pen in my hand because I'm like taking all the notes. It helps me to like not be like bird. Sometimes that. So circle back. When you're talking about partnering in these events and like having these takeaways, do you ever find yourself saying, okay, the client ask, so to speak, is really taking away from the actual experience that you are trying to deliver? Like, you know how sometimes it could be like, it could be over branded. And when I say over branded, it means like every 5 minutes there's a commercial check for like whatever. And it's like, we want to focus on the content. Like, how do you manage that?
So I can say honestly that because we have worked so hard on the custom event process, that now our clients and new clients, they know going into it what we produce. So it's definitely not a commercial. They don't want a commercial. It's thought leadership and focus. It needs to be able to be a conversation that that our attendees can organically say, like, oh, Apple was at the forefront of this conversation that I just heard. I want to see what else they're doing, or I want to see what other Forbes events are doing that could be helpful for me or my colleagues in the future. So we all have, like, I always say, our team and our programming team specifically has a lot of stakeholders, and each of our stakeholders has a mission. And we're the one that have to marry all of the people's missions together to create a cohesive product. But our number one customer is always the audience, because they make or break you. Any event that you do, it's your audience that
yeah. If you don't resonate with them, then why bother?
Exactly.
Okay, totally get that. You were talking earlier about like being very intentional with the curation of the event in terms of content and things. And this is something that I probably am not as vocal about it in public as I am about it in private rooms where I know I have influence. But when you're putting together these speaker lists or these panels, what are you doing to ensure that you have a diverse voice of sharing this like information with the world, so that someone like me can look on the stage and be like, I say someone like me in this like weird way, like I'm strange, but like, you know, some Black young girl from like a Caribbean island can look on the stage and be like, I can relate to this story, and I know that this information is applicable to me and my lifestyle within my professional sphere, and I can take that and be successful. And it's not like unattainable for me because it's coming from, you know, a white man. Not that it might not work for me, but it might not feel like it can.
Yeah. I think this actually shines a light on a bigger issue, which is hiring for these positions. And I know a lot of like everything with SVB and other organizations are having this issue right now in terms of diversity. Mm-hmm. Does it affect us? Yes. It is hard sometimes to get people of color, women to be speakers, because it's like, oh, I don't have a CIO in that space, or I don't have a financial advisor in that space, because they're not giving those opportunities. Because of this, we have a DEI goal that I don't think I can share externally. So I'm going to say we have that.
Okay. Well, just press pause right there.
That we stick to in terms of our content and programming. Will I say that there are events that it's easier to get people of color and to program? 100%. But my team works tirelessly. Like, we've been on the phone or I've been on the phone with like a team member who's working on a program, and they're like, I literally cannot find a single person of color to be a part of this conversation. And I love this about my team, especially the programming team. We are a very diverse team. Mm-hmm. It's mostly women. It's mostly women of color. There's only 5 people on the team. But for me, I'm like, these are the people that you want curating these stories, because they're in tune with who's coming up the ranks, who might be the next big CEO that is not a part of the conversation, or who should be tapping that might not have that title, but
they're on the way. Yeah,
exactly. And so that's been really great to see. And our editorial team has been really receptive to it, because they're seeing it. They're writing the stories and they're like, yes, we know this is happening. They are not, hiring for these roles, and not giving these people the opportunity to be, at the outset and see. Exactly.
It's funny that you're saying that. Like, there was a time where unconsciously, which is going to be ironic, where right now I'm president of this organization called the Graphic Artists Guild. And I was reminded probably like a month or so ago by like one of my co-board members, where he was like, you're like the first Black president, right? And I was like, oh. And so I never really leaned into that, because I was just like, my objective is not to like be like center stage about it. But then as I was talking to him, it was just like, it's going to matter to people. It's going to matter for them to feel like it's a space where they can belong and feel involved. But when I was like doing a lot of the programming, I started with the Guild in leadership as like the Southern Regional rep. I was doing a lot of programming, and this is bad. So I used to say that I was the rep of the less friendly states for people like me, because I had the South. Okay. And so as I was curating events and putting together like, subjects and topics and things like that, even like showcasing members, it kept being more and more evident that there was no one like me there. And I was like, and at first I didn't notice it. I was very blind to it, because what I was trying to find was the best resources within our organization, the people with the biggest voices, the most things to say, but there wasn't anybody like me, because they didn't feel like they could be comfortable in that space, because they didn't see someone like them. Mm-hmm. And they didn't feel like the information could be applied to them and their demographic. And I hear it all the time, even like I'm in these different like groups online, and they'll be like, oh, well, so we have this handbook. This is behind me. No one, if you're listening, you can't see it. But like, it's been around for like way too many years. And it's like the Graphic Artist Bible. And it's how, if you're a freelancer, like independent agencies, like how you can kind of like start to level out. Like, how do you price people? What kind of contracts you doing, this, that, and the third. And you'll hear like Black designers be like, yeah, we can't apply that to us because that doesn't work for art. And yes, the hell it does. Yes, stop that. It surely does. But because you've never seen it done, you feel like it's not actionable. I say all of that to say, it's so important for even us as individuals to be mindful of like what we're not putting on the forefront, because we don't even realize that we're shutting people out on accident or otherwise. So as I like belabor that, what do you like, what role do you believe that diversity, like equity and inclusion, and I don't even, I mean, I think there's like belonging and justice like all tied into that now, play in like the event planning industry, and like how do you, and I know you can't go too deep into your methods, but like how do you make sure that even the event attendees span a level of inclusivity?
Mm-hmm. So the attendee part, I don't fully know, because again, I'm not on the AD team.
Okay, that's fair.
But I can say for ourselves, not only for programming, but logistics, we've had conversations and have been really intentional. Taking logistics, for example, it is so easy to find a florist who's white, to find a caterer who's white, to find a photographer who's white. And usually they're men. To find staffers, that's white. But we don't want that. So we have been super intentional, especially using our, and I use this very lightly, downtime to find and figure
because
out.
Y'all don't have downtime. That's not a real
thing. We don't know what that is. But
everybody knows that that's a fairy tale.
Exactly. But you know, the time that we have to like really research and be super intentional with building our vendor database, that we can say these are people of color, these are a Black owned chef, they are a queer chef, they're queer artists. All these things have been super important, and I think have made our, and not think, I know, have made our events so much better, because there's that diversity of how this event is coming to life.
And how things.
I'll take, for example, like our florals. Like in the past, we were kind of just like, oh, they're florals, whatever. And my colleague was like, hey, I found this woman. She's a Black woman. I saw she did something really, really cool one time. I really want to bring her on for this event. And I was like, yes, bring her in. Let me see her portfolio. Saw it. It was like, beautiful. Work with her. And we have an event space that's beautiful, but it's very dark. And so when you're in there for a long time, like I was in there for like
draining
years, I was like, how can she lighten up this space? Like, how can we do all day events and she lightens up the space? And she walked in, she literally like just looked at the space and started like figuring out where she could put florals and arrangements that nobody had ever thought about before. Because it was like, oh, just slap it on the table and call it a day. She like decorated the back stage with these beautiful flowers and just made the space so light and airy, to a point where we were like, we never thought about this before. And nobody has ever done that before. Never said like, hey, actually, I want to come into your space and see what it's like. Usually they're like, oh, just tell how many florals you want. But she was like, no, I want to see this space and I want to be intentional with it. Same with our chef. Like, she kind of was like, what is the audience? What would they like? Tell us, like, how long is your program? Because that's important. Like, at the end of an all-day event, sometimes you're just starving and you want to throw down. And
get some mac and cheese and some chicken.
You know, it's like,
don't you dare pass me some salad. It's too late for that.
You know, like sometimes it's like, I don't want this crostini. I need a hot meal. And she's intentional with like, okay, let's see what your audience wants at the end of the day of an all-day event versus like, you know, a few hours or something like that.
Yeah, I think
so it's been very, very cool. And sorry, also the audience are different. Like our under 30 audience will most likely want something heavier than our CIO audience will want something different. We have a sustainable audience that will want to be more focused on plant-based and making sure it's like clean. That's also something that we're working on as well, is just like our sustainability as a whole and as a live group, and how we're looking at sustainability. So all of that, I think, funnels into DEI in ways. And I think we as event purveyors and people who are putting on events that are supposed to show the world we live in need to do the research and need to be intentional. It might take more time, but it's important because that's the only way you're going to get, again, your attendees in the door. Nobody wants to see all white men talking on a panel about diversity.
I mean, it's not even just getting them through the door, right? Like, it's for them to leave with a message that resonates.
Exactly.
Like, if they don't feel like the person on the stage can walk a mile in their shoes, it's really hard. And even though I try to like think outside the box, I was raised in an environment where I was always told I could do whatever the hell I want. Like I've actually, and it's funny because my cousins, sometimes they look at me and they're like, are we related? Because you're a little different. I've never believed that if I want to do a thing that I can't do this thing. Like if I truly want to do a thing, it might take me a little longer. Like, you know, God forbid I want to like climb a mountain. It might take me a little longer because my athletic ability is not like, you know, it's not on 100 or whatever. But if I really wanted to, like I can. But not everybody's raised in an environment like where they're constantly told like you're powerful, you can manifest and do anything, like you can chart the course. So it's really important for me, I think, when people are putting together programming to do that, to create that kind of impact. As I'm rambling, do you ever partner with brands in a sponsorship capacity? So they're not the sponsor, you are the sponsor, to basically produce an event that amplifies their message that you feel like could possibly have a positive impact on the world in some kind of way.
I'm sure we have. Unfortunately, that's not our side of the business. Gotcha. I think it would be the other side. So I can't really answer.
No, that's completely fair. And this is how you know this is not a staged podcast. Because that honestly was a selfish question. And this is just me being transparent, right? So same thing, like when I'm like, okay, well, getting more people into the space, into like the guild, into, you know, design thought leadership, into positions of power, into the position where they can actually have impact, we're really working on curating these events that allow access to the information, right? Like all this 50 plus years of information from like amazing professionals into places where they don't necessarily know that exists, where they don't even know being a graphic designer doesn't mean that you have to be like hungry and starving and like living out of a shoebox. Like you can be a creative and an artist and actually make good money and have a good quality of life. And so in my head, I was like, Forbes might be a good partner, but I'll circle back to you with that afterwards after I'm done with my shameless plugs. Okay, but what is, and this is a great tangent, what is some of the most memorable moments you've experienced at events that you've planned or even attended? Because you talked earlier about like attending other events to like glean knowledge and things, but give me like one of your most memorable moments.
Ooh, this is a great question. So I have a few. One I would say was last year. So we did our 3050 summit, our Forbes 3050 summit, where we partnered with Know Your Value. And it was in Abu Dhabi, and we had 6 weeks to plan it, literally 6 weeks.
Nice.
So easy. Light work.
No, you're basically a superstar. Or like a superhuman,
Yeah. Like the team was, I still can't believe they pulled it off, but it was intense. And so, you know, we had big name speakers confirmed, like Hillary Clinton, and we were so excited. And then, of course, the war started. The war in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, okay, we still think she's coming. We're good. And then when we got on site, of course, we came a few days earlier. And I got a call that was like, I'm so sorry, she can't come. I was like, okay, no worries, but we want to have her be virtual. And I'm like, okay, no problem.
That's a whole other logistical nightmare. I felt it in my toes. I was like, okay.
So yeah, so it was one of those things where it was like, okay, I can make this work. And so I got on the phone with our video team. I got on the phone with our logistics team. And we talked, it was 3:00 in the morning in my hotel room that we all like just chatted. And then we were like, okay, we have a plan, go, break. And so we are like setting it up. I go and I talk to the person who has brought it, our AV tech. And I'm like, okay, we're trying to test, but now we have to test with Hillary, but we're also doing this, like MSNBC is involved as well. So they're trying to test. And then people are opening the door and coming in as we're trying to test. Because this is last minute. They have gotten a certain time. We're still trying to test and figure it out. And I'm like, we don't have time to test. People are coming in now. And so they come in. I'm like, okay, where's the show caller? They were like, we don't have one.
Oh, okay.
You did not order one. And I was like, oh shit, I didn't. And I take that responsibility. And I'm like, I'm going to call the show. Have I ever called the show before? No.
But we gonna wing it.
Calling like the biggest show of my life. So cool. Let's just dip our toe into
time for everything.
Exactly.
We're in there.
It was insane. I still remember the feel, like the buzz off my body and like the stress sweat. And I remember seeing like a few of our like partners like turning to me because they realized like I was in the back. And I just like had on my headset and I was just like, okay, take Hillary. Okay, take Mika. Go to this person. Do this. Blah, blah, blah. And after I felt like I was like, you could see it. Like I felt like you could see how nervous I was.
Yeah, it probably wasn't as evident as
insane it was. Everybody was like, you were so calm. That was so great. How did that happen? Blah, blah, blah. Did you know how to do that? And I was like, no, I was faking it.
Yeah.
I faked everything.
Can I tell you how I really identify with that? Because I think, and I don't know, I think that really speaks like a character trait of yours. That same one where it's like, I'm gonna do it scared. Like it has to get done. I'm gonna do it scared. Because there are times when like I will be nervous as heck on the inside and I'll just do it anyway. And then everybody will be like, oh my gosh, you were so good. And in my head, I'm like, there's no way you thought I was good. I was dying on the inside. Like, I'm like immediately just get up and go right to the bathroom because I know I can throw up or something. And I was like, and I come out and you were so great. You look so polished. Ma'am. I felt the sweat between my eyes.
Yes. And like the worst thing is like when people come up and they're like, you were so great. It's like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, just forget that it happened.
Yeah, my heart hurts.
My heart hurts. I'm sweating a lot. That's why we wear all black, because I'm stress sweating. Let us move on, please.
I love that. I think that's a really great point. A really great point to now like pivot to another thing. Like, what kind of advice would you give someone just starting out in the event planning industry? And what skills do you believe are the most important to be successful in the field?
I think you always have to be curious. You always have to be curious. I've seen some event planners and event professionals that you can tell that they've been doing this a really long time. And so because they've been doing it a really long time, they're like
they've been doing
it.
It looks like it was done 20 years ago and it's still that way now.
Exactly. And it's like, this is protocol. This is how it's done. And it's like, guess what? That doesn't work anymore. You know, the great thing about Gen Z being able to walk and talk is that they have their like foot on your neck and they want to know like, why should I come to this? What am I going to get out of this? And you have to create that reasoning why. So I think always being curious. If you're a new event planner, I always say this, and it's so important. We're not saving lives. It is okay for things to get broken. It is okay for you to make a mistake. That's how you learn. And that's also how great ideas come about from, you know, you trying something and it doesn't pan out, or you try something and it works like a dream. You have to be able to do that. And I see people who are new to this industry and they're like, well, I'm so new. nothing that I've done before can be applied. Yes, you've walked this earth. You've had other jobs. A lot of things that you've experienced can be applied.
Absolutely.
And being able to bring that knowledge and being able to bring your eyes, because there are things that I see as an event person and other people's, like my mom came to an event with me recently and she was talking about like certain things. And I was like, girl, that was a great idea. But like, this is my mom, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just so funny that people tend to be like, well, I haven't been doing this as long as you, so I don't want to rock the boat. No, rock the boat. Like, it is okay, because nobody's, at the end of the day, no, we're not brain surgeons. We are creating experiences and opportunity. And I want people that want to be creative in this space. If you're not going to be creative, if you're going to be scared, then you probably shouldn't do this job. And that's kind of how I feel about it, which I know is tough.
It's funny you said that. I don't want to. I was gonna tell a story, but it just sounds like I'm really being mean about my old boss. And I remember, I think she was just really stressed. She I don't think that she managed her stress well with her team. I think she managed her stress well with her superiors. Mm-hmm. And so when she was frustrated, she would just be very, just keep your head down and do what I'm telling you to do. And I'm like, I don't think what you're telling me to do is a good idea. And so I'm trying to bring a solution and just do what I'm telling you to do. And then the next day she would be like, I need you to think outside the box. Like, ma'am, I need you to pick one. I need, like, you want me to fall in line or you want me to be creative? I just need you to pick one. And as you were talking and saying that, I was like, gosh, sometimes I don't even think that people even realize how they stifle their team's creativity by how they choose to interact with them. And it's not just detrimental to the team, but just to the overall objective of your department and the brand. So that's
100%. And it's so funny. I love that you brought up stress, because I think people forget, and especially people who are on the outside looking in, they're like, oh, you're a party planner. Like, what's so stressful?
Oh,
like,
and all you do is have fun.
Yes. All you do is have fun. You have a great time. That is not true. Like, I love my job. I feel so lucky and blessed to do this job. But does it suck sometimes? Hell yes. And it's hard and it's stressful and your feet hurt and your feet bleed.
Wow. And then you can't sit, and then you have to. So I used to have these like on site visits, like go set up the graphics and stuff. I used to have to have these cushions on my toes. And I was like, these are my running shoes. How are my toes burning? This makes no sense. You think you're running a marathon. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. The amount, when you count your steps at the end of a day, and I'm like,
oh yeah. Yeah. Want to meet your friends in the Fitbit challenge? Do it during conference setup time. Okay.
Exactly.
Any day of the week.
That's where you do it.
And I mean, and it's funny too, because like I would like sometimes like post on social and be like, oh, but you get to fly everywhere, you get to be in these fancy hotels, and that's true, and that's nice, and you enjoy those amenities. But remember, I'm also in the tub in the hotel in Epsom salt half the night.
Yes.
I get that amenity so that I can go back and tear it up tomorrow. Relax. Honestly, Jessica, it was so nice chatting with you. I know I kind of took us all over the place today. I don't know how focused our conversation was, but I do think that people will definitely glean some knowledge from this and definitely feel, at the very least, inspired to, number one, enter a space that they're not familiar with, be inspired to be curious, be inspired to be open and welcoming to other points of view outside of their own, not be so familiar, or not be so quick to just grab to what's familiar looking to them, but also people outside of themselves. So really, really appreciate your time and like your willingness to come and chat with me. But before I let you go, I got one more question. One event that every event planner should attend at least once in their entire life.
Oh, that's a great question. So here's a fun fact about me. It's not a great fact. I am not great at crowds. Like, I'm just not good. Like, I get not overwhelmed, but I just don't like a crowd. I'm like,
There's there.
Like, well, it's just me being a crazy person. Like, I like to know, like, I have a nice bathroom to go to. Like, I don't go to festivals because I'm like, I want a specific bathroom. I want to know I have a seat. I want all those things. So, but I have gone to San Diego Comic-Con twice.
Okay.
As somebody who is not a fan of crowds, I will say, I think that event is so great in terms of how you can see different activations being put on and how to handle a large scale event at so many different levels, like taking over an entire city to execute this event and how they integrate themselves into the city. So that's one that I would highly recommend people go to, just to like see how they're doing it and what's made it so popular beyond, of course, the panels and everything else, but for the city of San Diego.
So I started, and when you said, I started looking through some notes because I'm like, I think I have the planner for that coming on the show. I'm almost sure, like I read that through a bio, and now I can't remember who it is, but now I'm more excited.
That would be so cool if you did.
Yeah, no, I'm almost sure that's happening. I mean, even if it's not, I can make it happen.
You should. Like I went last year, and so they had a few COVID policies in place. And you had to do specific things, but they partnered with Clear for how they did their COVID checking. And
I love that.
Just so
your eyes. Yeah.
And like even the app is super interesting to see like how you can put like it's choose your own adventure. So how to even structure the app to me is interesting. Are there things that I would not do as a planner? Yes, but
that's fine. But there are things to experience. So
exactly. Well, and just how people do activations as well. Sorry, I'm a big activation person. So like the activations, like, yes, there are long lines, and I do think they should have a fast pass opportunity, but again, neither here nor there, but it's just a really good one to see.
Okay, nice. I think that's really cool. I'll put it on my list. I know this year for sure, I'm definitely going to go to IMAX. I'm thinking like, should I go to both or just one? Like I'm trying to make it work for my schedule to do both, like Frankfurt and America. But we'll see how it goes. Anywho,
I hope you do both.
Yeah, me too. Are you going to be there?
So I always miss it because we have an event during it every single year. This year we have an event during it, but I also have a vacation planned. So
all right, we'll see. All right. Well, thank you again so much, Jessica. Really appreciate your time, and I hope you have an awesome day.
Thank you. You too.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Eventus 365. We hope you enjoyed listening and learning something new today. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform to help event professionals discover us. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and sign up for our newsletter for behind-the-scenes content and updates on upcoming events. If you have any suggestions for future topics or guests, or just want to say hello, you can reach us at info@eventus365.com. We love hearing from our listeners. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Eventus 365.